Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm gonna do an overview of a kind of medium duty food slicer for home use. This is a Beswood model number 250. So Beswood-250 is the actual model number of the slicer. It's being sold on Amazon, and the reason we bought this compared to many other slicers is because it's got raving reviews, very good reviews on Amazon. Okay, and it's selling for a reasonable price of $350. Before I ordered this, I actually went to a restaurant supply store and ordered another slicer that costs a little more. However, I returned that slicer, and the reason being the Beswood 250 actually features a very high quality Italian made blade, and this blade is a carbon steel blade. It's chromium plated, which means it's gonna last just a little bit longer compared to a standard carbon steel blade that might rust very easily if you don't take care of it. And also, if you use a stainless steel blade, it's gonna have a less. You have to sharpen it a lot more. With a carbon blade, you don't have to sharpen it as often as you want. I mean, as often as compared to a stainless steel. And the cool thing with this slicer is also come with a built-in sharpener. Now, granted, I don't expect to use this sharpener that much because it's a carbon blade, but it is there. So the slicer, let's see. The sharpener have two parts. One is in the front and one is in the back. When you need to use it, you flip this gray area to the front and the other area, which is the sharpening part, to the back, because the blade is single bevel. Over here, there's no blade, and the blade have a bevel on the back of the sharpener. The front is for deburring. This one doesn't really sharpen. The back is actually where it's gonna sharpen that carbon blade. Okay. When you don't use the sharpener, you simply just flip it over to have the two blades on the back to protect the sharpener blade, and then you just simply gonna lock it. And that way the top of the blade is protected. Oops. So the top of the blade is protected, and the machine is pretty much ready to use. Now I'm not doing the unboxing because it's very uneventful. It comes with a nice bread deflector. This one is to be installed on the back if you slice breads. Also keep in mind, it slices regular breads. If you have crusty breads, any kind of slicer is not gonna slice it. So make sure your bread is soft, is not crunchy and crusty, okay? So a lot of people makes bad reviews and saying, oh, this slicer doesn't slice bread. And if you look at the review picture, the slicing through crunchy, crispy bread. None of the slicer can do that. You need a serrated blade slicer for that purpose. Okay, those are mainly for meats and vegetables. So this is the little option for the back, and also comes up with a little brush. This this brush is used to clean those hard to clean areas. And again, they highly suggest you not to touch or go reach the super sharp blade area. So if there's any area that needs clean, they suggest you use this little brush to clean it off, especially on the protector and on other areas. Okay, so this also comes with the slicer. Now it also comes with a hex wrench. Okay, this hex wrench is used to remove the blade, which is secured by 3 screws. Now to expose that 3 screws is very easy. I'll flip it over. So if you look, there's a little knob over here. You just unscrew this knob. And while you're unscrewing, you're gonna hold on to this front part. Okay, you're gonna hold on to the front part. And once you have the knob completely coming out, you simply just going to, when it's out, you're gonna just push it forward just a little bit, and it's gonna expose the blade area. Okay, so now, as I said, this is an extremely high quality carbon steel blade that's made in Italy by the company called Reassembly. Okay, and again, they are established in 1827. Such an old company, right? Anyway, so yeah, this is a really high quality blade for the price that you're paying. I think the most you're paying is for this high quality blade. There are cheaper slicers out there, namely some Chinese slicer, I think by the name of, it starts with the V something. That one also comes with a carbon blade. However, I don't think that carbon blade is a high quality carbon blade such as this one that's made in Italy. And that one is $100 cheaper. So if you do fancy, a more affordable carbon steel blade sharpener or slicer, you should consider that one. And I'll post a link for both of those slicers on Amazon, so you can decide yourself on which one to buy. And I just showed you guys the blade, and also there were 3 screws over there. Again, I'm not gonna remove the blade since I have barely used the slicer yet, okay? And once you secure it, the blade, the plate is here to make sure the slicing action is smooth. Of course, the spacing is adjustable. This one adjusts from 0 to 10 millimeters, and it's adjusted through this little knob over here. So usually when you don't use it, you're gonna push it all the way to the 0, and that way the slicer blade is actually recessed. So if your hand comes over here, it's not gonna slice your hand off. But as soon as you start moving this, you'll see this little plate starts to move around. Okay, and that exposes this super sharp blade. Okay, again, don't be fooled by the shape. This is an extremely sharp round blade, and be careful with your hands over here, right? So this is 10 millimeters. This is the thickest part. This is the thickest that it will slice, and of course, infinitely adjustable. And usually for shabu shabu and hot pot, which is what we are looking to use this to slice the meat for, you're just gonna use around probably 2 to 4 millimeters, depending on your preference. Okay, so we're slicing not so thick meat, and also this slicer is not recommended for slicing super hard frozen meat. It's recommended for slicing kind of half frozen meat. So if you have a solid piece of like rock hardened frozen meat that you want to slice, leave it in the fridge for maybe a day, and by the next day you take that half frozen meat out and you can use this slicer to slice it, no problem. But if you have frozen meat, it will slice those frozen meat, but the blade is it's gonna wear out super fast. So I highly recommend you not to do that, using this to slice super solid frozen food. Okay, it's not designed for that. It's mainly designed to be a deli slicer, okay, but you can slice half frozen meat. And that's pretty much the overall review of the slicer. Namely, the most high quality part is the blade, okay, and also the slicer is very quiet. It's belt driven. Of course, with the adjustment, there's a power button, so it's a push button for both power, for on and off. Sorry, this is on. If you press this, a little white LED is going to come up. I'll demonstrate later with a piece of meat, so we can do some slicing action so you can see how well it works. And this is the off button. They have the off button very pronounced, so it's easy to just press it and stop it. For the start button, you kind of have to press it hard and recess it for the machine to start running, okay? So when you are doing slicing, the proper way of operating the slicer is with those 2 parts facing you, okay? So you want those parts facing you, and you have the meat over here, and you're able to catch the meat when you're slicing, and you're also able to turn the machine off if there's emergencies happening, okay? And you, again, also very easily to adjust the slicing depth. Do not use the slicer with this facing you, okay? This is the wrong way. Don't use it like that. And also, I would probably not recommend, let me see if I can turn this, slicing it like that with the machine facing you on the back. Again, you're not in control, and it's kind of hard to push those areas. The best way is, again, just have the slicer this way, so you have control both front and back, the power and everything. So that's a proper way of using the slicer. And as I mentioned, very well constructed. The reason I chose this one compared to the cheaper one is also because if I can flip it on back, you'll see the bottom cover is also very well protected. On some of the cheaper slicers, the bottom is usually exposed, which kind of doesn't look good. And again, something might just get in there and you never know. But this slicer is very well constructed for $350. The motor is 250 watts. Keep in mind, it's not gonna output 250 watts of power. The actual output power is probably around 150 watts. Okay, so the 250 rating is actually for 220 voltage countries. In the States, we use 110, and the motor's output power is actually reduced when you use a lower voltage AC outlet. So keep that in mind, okay? It's advertised as 250, but it's only outputting around 150 watts of the power. Now that's pretty much it. It's got the kind of like very stable rubber feet, and it actually sits really well on the counter. Also, this thing is extremely heavy. I believe it's over 30 pounds, probably like 32 to 35 pounds. So if you're kind of petite lady, you have to think about like having this set at a place that you're able to use it and move it easily, okay? But if you're a guy, I don't think there's any issue. The only problem is I kind of wish there's a lock for this, because when I move this around, this thing kind of just dangles around. Like if they put a lock over there, it would be hugely beneficial. That's just some design suggestion that I have for Beswood. But other than that, you have this little food catching area. This thing is 3D adjustable, so you can go like this, front and back, and you can also go like this, okay? So that's why I call it like 3D. And if you put it all the way to here, it actually locks, so you're able to put the meat there, and once you finish, you can unlock it, and then just, adjust based on your preference. But it's got pointy things on the bottom, and it's also got pointy things on the other side, quite pointy, so it grabs the food pretty well, okay? This deflector, you can remove it, but I don't see any reason to remove it. This comes with a slicer in the box, and you just put it on here with a screwdriver. Very, very easy to assemble. This knob you see over here is to remove this area for cleaning the blade and the surface over here. So to remove this whole thing, you just need to unscrew this by turning it counterclockwise, and again, this is tightened quite a lot. You turn it counterclockwise until you remove this, and then you can just kind of lift it up and lift it out. So up and out. And this thing is used to actually secure it. So you have this removed. It's very, very easy to access here and clean everything, okay? So that's what this little knob is for. At the very beginning, I didn't know what it's for. I thought it's like, why they put a knob over here? And now I realized it's actually for securing this onto the slicer. And to put it on here, of course, you just tilt it, kind of slice it in here, and it catches there, and it's ready to go. Another thing I want to mention before going to the food testing section is the blade is readily available from Beswood for about $125. Now, if you go to some other website, you might be able to find 10-inch blades for $80 or less. Those blades are stainless steel. It's not a high quality carbon blade that's made in Italy, okay? So there is a difference when it comes to the quality of the blade, and that's usually reflected in the price of the blade. For home use, it's not gonna wear out that fast, but you do have options of getting the blade replaced. Now, we went through all those, and before we start slicing, one important thing is, if you're using it for the first time and if you're watching my video and your slicer is coming, you haven't started using it, you haven't unboxed, the blade, when it comes, this blade is coated in a very thick and greasy, like black, like waxy looking thing. You need to actually get some piece of meat out that you don't want and just slice through a few pieces of the meat to get the nasty, like dark, black grease out. That exposes the actual blade over here. So definitely keep that in mind, or just do a general like clean with warm water and mild soap detergent. This machine is not immersible in water. You have to clean everything with just soap and towel. I used a few pieces of bacon meat to just slice through and get the blade kind of nicely clean, so it's ready for actual real food slicing. But if you get it for the first use, you're gonna have some nasty looking thing, like greasy looking thing on the blade. I might be able to find you guys some videos that I took earlier that shows that grease. Okay, I don't know if it's food safe. I think it's food safe. It just doesn't look good and it's kind of like disgusting. So definitely remove the nasty grease on the blade before your first use. Now I have the grease removed. This is not my first time trying it out. My trick for after using it is actually apply a very thin layer of canola oil or just like well refined oil to coat the blade and all the surface area. So one, it protects everything from oxidizing and rusting. Second, it's just it makes slicing a lot easier. So that's what I would do. And again, I'm going to show you this later. So let me just grab a few pieces of meat. We're going to actually get into the slicing action over here. Now, one last thing I need to mention is when you first buy the slicer and you turn on the power, I just turn on the power, your slicer might be making kind of a grinding sound, like zim, 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 kind of that grinding sound. Don't worry about that. That grinding sound will eventually disappear after you start slicing food for a little bit. And I believe that grinding sound is probably the excessive amount of the protective grease or the wax that they use for the slicer that's kind of hitting something. And so keep that in mind. I use it to slice, some meat, and after that grinding sound completely disappeared. I almost was about to return the slicer. I was like, something's wrong. It's got that weird grinding sound. But now it's fine. When you first get it, they also suggest you to turn the machine and have it run dry for about 2 minutes, just to make sure the motor is working fine and nothing is out of ordinary. Okay. And again, if I need to show you the action over here, it's kind of hard for me to show the front area, but let's see if I can try to have an angle. Okay, I think this is probably the best angle because you want to be able to see how well the thing slices. It does have this little board here that catches the food, and so the food stops over there and it would just fall down here if you don't catch it. But in the back, it's very safe. Like there's no place that your hand is gonna get cut, so your hand could like literally be everywhere on the back. So in the front, you have to be really careful because as soon as you start turning this and adjusting to a cutting size, you're exposing the extremely sharp blade in the front. So the front area, you don't want to touch anything. You want to only use the handle here. Okay, keep that in mind. And you guys heard the noise, super, super quiet. Okay. Originally, I was about to use half frozen meat, but I haven't had time to make the video, and now the meat is almost it's almost thawed. So yeah, keep that in mind also. Let's see, and it's dripping some water, so let's slice some bacon first. Okay, gonna get it kind of patted dry. You don't want water to be dripping. Any dripped water is gonna fall to the ground, and it's kind of makes cleaning even more harder. So I would actually just pat it dry before you put it there. Okay, and let's see. So to slice, you need to make sure your slicing direction is correct. Like if you want to slice this area, you have to actually, let's see, you have to put this against the slicer over here. So whichever area you want to slice, just think of your hand as a slicer. You put it here, and then that's the exact same way you're gonna put right here. Okay, I'm gonna show you, see if I can flip it over here. Right. Turn it around. So the bacon is right here, and again, I'm using this by lifting this all the way and then just pushing it against the slicer and doing it that way. Alternatively, if you have a frozen piece of meat, you might be able to just put it on top and then keep pushing it, but for this one, it's actually easier to slice with this on the back and just pushing it over there. And as you can see, it just slices, it just glides very easily. And I'm gonna turn this over here, and I'm gonna keep myself safe. I'm gonna start slicing. And again, I have the thickness set to 2 millimeters. Turning on the slicer. And we're gonna start slicing, okay? Let me make sure the camera angle is correct. All right, right there. And let's slice. Guess what? It slices like butter. There's no weird noise. I don't think you need to be frozen to slice, especially the blade is extremely sharp. So this is 2 millimeter, and I think it's a good thickness for kind of if you want to make your home bacon, whatever. And again, I'm gonna keep slicing. Wow, guys, check it out. Okay, so now I kind of screwed it up. The thing catched over there. I gotta turn this off. Once this thing catches, that's where it makes things nasty, okay? Let's see. Yep. Now again, keep in mind, this is my second time slicing, and I was too much enjoying myself, and I actually let the food accumulate over there. This area, the food is very easy to get trapped, and then go under. And this is what happens, like the food gets trapped, and it gets sucked under there, kind of hard to get out. So keep that in mind. We're gonna continue slicing, but with each slice, I'll make sure to actually remove the food and then slide before the next slice is going through, okay? So I'm gonna start again. All right, I definitely want to leave it on the side. Get it just a little bit thicker. And it's beautiful, okay? It's beautiful. All you have to do is have your hand there and just catch it, okay? Wow. And as you get a hang of it, it really becomes like second to nature. And again, this is only my second time slicing. It's a joy. It's a joy, literally a joy. Would I recommend this? Absolutely. Okay. Now, here comes another thing that we need to take into consideration. If you're slicing bacon, as you can see, it actually left the skin out, which kind of sucks. So I would say for bacon with a skin, you definitely want it half frozen, because last time I sliced this kind of pretty frozen. It sliced with the skin, absolutely no issue. This time it was not able to catch the skin. The skin just flaps over, and then it kind of defies the purpose of me trying to get skin down bacon sliced. So yeah, I guess it's trial and error. So if you have something with a skin like a bacon, you want to have it half frozen so it doesn't do this. I mean, I'll just fry this skin as you know, just make it crispy and do a crispy fried skin, but definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, it's kind of hard to slice the skin this way. I'm gonna give it another try. And no, it just would not slice the skin. Yep, it would not. Oh well. The rest of the thing are kind of nice, so you know what? I'm going to cut the skin and slice the rest of the meat. And just without the skin. So at least we're able to get the job done. My wife would probably be mad because this is one of her better piece of meat. You know what? We're just frying the skin. Skin's really nice fried. Okay, so this is again, if you go to Costco, this is kind of the meat you're gonna get without the skin. Okay. Anyway, with the skin, you want the meat to be half frozen, definitely. And I'm gonna continue to push this, see if it actually go all the way. Okay. As the meat gets less and less, it becomes a lot more harder to slice, and actually it gets trapped. I'll show you guys. It gets trapped in here. Okay, you see? So that's kind of, again, something to take into consideration as well. There is a large gap over there that would actually trap meat. And you know what? I would suggest cutting those kind of meat half frozen. Again, if you have those completely thawed, the last couple slice is not gonna be as pretty as you see, you know, at restaurants where they have perfectly sliced bacon, pork belly meat, whatever. Okay, definitely take that into consideration. And again, I'm not sure if I'm still able to do this. Let's see. We might not. So the last bit, let's try. The blade at the front is already super dirty, and that clean is gonna take a while. Okay. And some meat fly over, all the way over there. Let's see. And it definitely gets trapped to the back of the blade protector. Wow, this is such a mess. Okay, and again, the thing keeps getting stuck over there. So I guess the last bit, unfortunately, I have to cut with my hand, which sucks. But for the part that it did slice, it sliced perfectly fine, okay? I'm gonna save those so my wife can use it for some cooking. And that fatty stuff, I'm gonna fry it. Oh, you guys won't be able to see it. So this is the thing that the machine was not able to do, the skin and the fatty part, okay? So with that said, let's try this chunk of meat over here, okay? And this is a piece of beef, like round meat, I believe. We use those for sous vide, but now we have this, we can probably try it on the hot pot. Okay. Now what you can also do, if you want to slice those, just put it in freezer fairly quick, and it gets half frozen, and then you can take it out and just quickly slice it. So that would be an alternative to do it. Okay. But other than that, yeah, keep that in mind. I'm gonna again drop this in here. The size, the side you want to cut, just make sure you put it over here. And again, I'm gonna push it through and see how well it goes. I'm gonna adjust the thickness, again, somewhere at 2. And that seems to be a good starting point. All right, so let's start. Did well. So now it seems like as long as you're not cutting super fatty stuff, it's gonna do its job, okay? It's gonna do its job well. And this literally takes no time. Takes no time at all. All right. And it cuts almost to the last bit, which I kind of like. Okay. Now, the last bit, I'll show you guys. Gets trapped over there. Again, something to keep in mind. For this piece, you might just have to hand cut for the last piece. But for the rest, it cut beautifully, okay? Cut beautifully. Very, very nice. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna turn this over, and I definitely need to clean this machine after all those cutting, because it gets really dirty. Some of the fat, again, it's not very good at cutting fat, so it left it over there. Half frozen would be my bet for all those meat with fats on top and with the skin on top. Okay. Yes. So let me just cut this. Those I'm gonna use to make some lard, and the beef, the last piece, okay, hand cut. Not as good, not as good. Like, it's not gonna cut as good with a knife compared to with this beautiful cutting, okay? Very nicely cut. All right, so there you have it. And the mango, I don't want to give it a try. It's already like super dirty. I'll probably just eat the mango. But cutting meat, half frozen is my best bet, and that's what I would recommend. I'm doing this not frozen is because I kind of missed my time window. But it's still able to do it, okay? But half frozen, the fat is gonna get cut much nicer. Again, you can cut vegetables as well. I'm not gonna try those. We just use knives to cut vegetables. But for shabu shabu, this is definitely a great option, okay? Look at that, super nice. All right, so next section, we're gonna come back and I'm just gonna do a cleaning and see how well the cleaning process is, because I haven't cleaned this machine very thoroughly yet. Okay, so now we've come to the clean part of the Beswood 250. As you can see, lots of nasty grease and fat that needs to be removed. First thing first is make sure your power is unplugged. You don't want to slice your hand off during cleaning process. And for me, generally, first thing I'm gonna do is actually just remove the food holder, okay, in the front. Again, turning it counterclockwise, lift it up. I'm gonna drop this into the sink and just give it a nice clean. Okay. And the next part is, of course, this machine right here. It's super dirty, okay? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use some lukewarm water and just gently dab onto my towel, kitchen towel, and just wipe everything off as a first pass. And then I'm gonna remove this plate, see if there's any extensive like dirtiness inside. If no, then I'm just gonna clean the front and the back. If yes, we're gonna try to remove the blade as well. My hope is I really don't want to remove the blade because it's such a hassle, and the blade is actually tightened. The screw is very, very hard to remove on those blades, okay? Make sure you kind of like reset the position, because right now I didn't realize the blade is still exposed. Kind of dangerous. If I slide over there, my hand would probably get sliced off, okay? So let's turn this all the way to protect your hand, and then we can continue cleaning, okay? Of course, the first pass is just to get all the fat off the grinder or the slicer, okay? Because the fat is your biggest enemy over here. It affects the sharpening, it affects the general smoothness of the blade and everything else. And the blade kind of rotates, so I would actually just kind of like hold on to a corner and just try to get most of the fat out of the blade. Try not to touch the edge. Always try to be as safe as you can, okay? All right. So a general clean of the front is kind of done, fairly quick. I would take a look at the back. The back seems mostly okay. Fairly clean here. I'm cleaning off all the knobs. All right. Let's take the top protective, the front protective cover off. And take a look how dirty the front is. And I'm gonna say not as bad, okay? It's very well sealed in this area. So all I have to do, again, I'm gonna probably drop this into the warm water and just clean it. And just clean this area. Be careful not to slice your hand. Wear one of those protective gloves if you have one. That would help quite a lot, okay? All right. And once we finish cleaning the front, we're gonna focus on the back and do a cleaning of the back of the blade, okay? So right here is kind of where it got dirty, and you want to really nicely just wipe this area. Try your best not to damage your hand or touch too close to the blade. So the only thing I'm not able to access, of course, is behind the blade guard over here. And again, I think that's what they suggested, using the little brush to kind of clean. Oh, there are also some food trapped on the top as well. Keep that in mind. You want to clean the top as well, but be careful because the top is kind of have the blades half exposed. So careful around the top area where your hand is when it meets the blade. And yeah, okay, not too bad. So they also say don't immerse this in water because I think there are some parts that gets rusted really easily. So this one, just do a hand clean and just generally wipe it off, and never sharpen your blade with fat at a dirty blade. It's gonna damage the sharpener, so you might need a new sharpener in the long run. But this is pretty much it. Now I would probably remove the blade every maybe 4 or 5 times and clean the underside. But for now, if there's nothing touching the underside and everything else looks okay, then I would actually just put everything back together and ready for next use, okay? But again, the blade is sharp. I have to constantly remind you guys, be extra careful around super sharp blade, especially with some of the protective mechanisms removed, okay? All right, so I'm going to put everything back and I'll show you guys how I just kind of conditions the blade after I finish with everything. All right, got everything cleaned and we're putting everything back. And that's pretty much it. As you can see, not terribly hard. So the last step, obviously I said I'm gonna show you guys how I keep the blade in very good shape until next use. Okay, which is, again, probably not a secret. I go grab some oil. Like refined oil would work best because the refined oil would actually have less chance of go rancid, but I'm just gonna be using like olive oil and just dab some on the paper towel, let it absorb a little bit, and I'm basically just, that's probably too much. Okay, let's see. I'm going to connect the power, have the blade running, and then just apply some of those while the blade is running to condition the blade, okay? And again, I'm gonna set the safety by putting it to 0. I'm gonna reconnect the power. And when I have it run, okay, that's, so while it's running, be really careful of your hand, and you are going to actually just with a little oil dab, condition the blade just a little bit with oil, okay? Now same thing for the back, okay? And with oil applied, the blade is not gonna rust. And this is a carbon blade. Any kind of carbon blade, you'll want to have some oil applied to the blade to prevent rust. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna turn the machine off. And of course, wipe off any excessive water that's still on there. And it's pretty much like the slicing job and the clean job are all pretty much done. And it's really not that hard. So what they suggest after you clean this is dab a few drops of the lube. So I can't find the lube, but they always ask you to dab a few drops of the lube over here to promote smooth sliding action. If you don't have the lube, just use some oil and dab all the rods that you can see to ensure everything slides really nicely. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Nothing, you know, out of ordinary. It's very easy to clean, and it slices food very, very nicely. My tip for you guys is obviously for any food that have excessive amount of fat, try to half frozen the food for easier slicing action. Otherwise, it's super sharp. It's easy to slice all kinds of food, even the meat that I demonstrated that's not very well frozen or very well in shape. And so would I recommend this machine? Absolutely yes. Is it worth $350? I believe so. But I could probably save some money by going for the slightly cheaper option on Amazon with a carbon blade, and it will probably still do the same kind of job as compared to the Beswood. But I'm not complaining. This machine is very easy to use, very easy to service, have a few small quirks, but I don't think anything is major or is gonna deter you from buying this machine for its performance and its quietness, okay? So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, please do hit the like button or subscribe to our channel, and we will have more similar, you know, kitchen related videos coming out for you guys. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.